See if I got the camera right. So you read the title of this video, premarital sex, a topic that a lot of people are really sensitive about, if you get what I'm trying to say. It's something that a lot of people have mixed opinions about. Some people think that premarital sex is very bad. It's really unholy, you should never do it. And others think that premarital sex is fine. Sex is something that you should just experience. It's part of life. And for so long, I've kind of been in the middle. I always thought that, okay, yeah, having sex, it should be with someone special. But at the same time, you don't really have to wait till marriage. What's the point of that? And, me being now a born again Christian, I've been a Christian for a majority of my life, like a lukewarm Christian. And then I think in my teens, I kind of started going towards the modern day route, which is just kind of not really thinking much about religion and just kind of going with the flow. And my views on sex, it was very loose. I was just going out there, whoever I liked, whoever, even some people I even didn't like, just going out there and just, you know, doing my thing, and I have a lot of regrets, but sex was something that I didn't really value that highly for a long time, but thankfully I didn't become like a player or like an expert at picking up people because I very quickly realized that this hookup culture, casual relationship stuff wasn't for me. You know, I remember I lost my virginity at 19 and thankfully was in a relationship with a girl that I liked at the time, but obviously that ended. And after that, I was just doing casual relationships, where I did like the person, but we weren't actually in an established relationship. Had like one or two hookups, but every single time what I noticed was it just felt wrong. And even before I was religious, I just always had like this gut feeling that I shouldn't be having sex with just random people. I shouldn't be having sex with people who are just temporary in my life. It's going to end. And every single time, as I said, it felt wrong and I'd get hurt. Once it end, let's say the other person didn't want to do it anymore, or I'd have to make the hard decision to end it because I was getting hurt. I very quickly learned that, yeah, this is not for me. And it wasn't until my last relationship, my most recent relationship, and I'm, currently, currently grieving. And it's been getting better, but I realized that I should have saved myself for the right person. Because in my last relationship, I was with a good girl. I was a girl who really valued sex highly, and she said she wanted to be with someone who she really loved, and she wasn't religious, but she valued sex really highly, and it honestly made me feel like crap because in that relationship I was addicted to porn. I wasn't really the man I was supposed to be, and I know I'm kind of just dumping all this stuff in the camera. It's kind of getting personal now, but basically after that breakup, because we recently broke up, I broke up with her. I just realized that I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for someone like that. I wasn't ready for a loving, supportive partner, and she was. And it really hurt because I always knew that I wanted to be in a marriage even before I was religious, even before when I was in those days of hooking up, being this like trying to be this wannabe player. I always knew that I deep down I just wanted to have a loving, supportive partner. And it just made me really, and as I said, it just made me really look inside myself and being like, what do I need to fix to become that guy for my future family? And if you can relate to all of these things, where you just feel like this modern world is not for you, you feel like you just don't fit in. You're with a group of guys and they're all talking about the girls that they had sex with. They're talking about this girl's butt, and you just feel out of place, like you just don't belong there. Just know that you're not alone, and just know that you don't have to please these people. You don't have to conform to these rules that this modern day or this modern world is trying to put onto you. And that's a big reason why I went to Christ. I went to Christ because Christ is, in a way of life. And everything that Christ has to say, I always felt was right. I always was kind of doing that. And every time I didn't follow those principles, every time I was pushing God away out of my life, I noticed that I was losing part of myself as well. And as I said, from a young age, I always kind of knew. I always kind of knew that sex was something sacred. And I just really regret that I I gave it to people who just didn't deserve it. Sex is one of the most intimate honestly, not even one of, it is the most intimate thing that you can experience with another human being. And for me to do that with people who just weren't even temporary, or no, who weren't even permanent, sometimes it just hurts my soul, you know. But I want to talk about the pros and cons. The yap's over. I know, like the yap's over, but I want to talk about the pros and cons of this. Pros and cons of premarital sex, because I'd say there are some pros, and like there is some like good sides to it, and there is some bad sides to it. I've already talked about my bad sides. Me not wanting, or me giving it to other people who don't value me. But I want to go more in depth about it. So, first pro, I'd say, of having premarital sex is that you'll have more experience. So let's say you're eventually want to get into that hookup culture life, or you already are in that hookup culture life. The more experience you have, the more better you'll be at pleasing people. And honestly, you could say that this is a con as well. It all depends on your perspective. But what I'd say is, for these modern day relationships, with casual relationships, hookups, having more experience actually makes you better. And that makes sense. If you have more experience in anything, you'll be better. But for me, I'd say that this is a con for my own personal experience, because being a born again Christian, I want to experience something like that with someone I deeply love moving forward. But anyways, second one, I'd say, for the pro of a premarital sex, is that it feels good. That's all it is. It feels good. If you're doing it with someone who you're really attracted to, and you guys really like each other, then it's an amazing experience. And as I said, with these things, you can kind of put into your own box of whether you think this is a pro or a con, because some people could say this is a con. It could be a con because if it feels good, then after that, it will pull you closer to that person, and they might not even like you. But I mean, like you like that, like in a relationship where they want to be around you, and it it all just depends on what you value, and what box you want to put it in. So yeah, those are the only two pros I could think of. Maybe there's a few more that you were thinking of by yourself, but I'd say, it feels good, and you'll have more experience. That's pretty much it. Now let's get into the cons. So the first con, I'd say, is you're seeing people as an object rather than as a person. And this is subjective. This varies from person to person, because some people still do casual sex, but they do it in more of like a relationship type way, where it's just a temporary relationship. You guys don't have any labels or anything. And I'd say that that's a bit better, but for the most part, if you're just hooking up, going to nightclubs, hooking up with random girls that you find attractive, and then after, there we go, that's it. What is the difference between that and jerking off? Because think about it. You're just jerking off, but with a person. But instead, now you had a soul tie with that person. Really think about that for a sec. You essentially are watching porn, jerking off, but with a person. And as soon as I had that realization, I just told myself I'm never hooking up with anyone ever again, because Because I want that soul tie to be with someone I deeply love in a marriage. And listen, if you don't have the same values as me, then you can click off this video. Maybe there's people who already have clicked off this video because they just don't agree with what I'm saying. But I'm telling you, if you have been relating to me and everything that I've been saying in this video, then I know that we are similar in some way. So I urge you, dude, like, if you are still in this hookup culture lifestyle, you're drinking, partying, doing drugs, you're seeing girls as objects, then just please get out of that lifestyle quickly. Because I'm telling you, the more you rack up your body count, the more chances, the more you're upping your probability of getting it in a failed marriage. I'm telling you, it's the truth. But anyways, one is you just see people as an object. That's a con. Two is you're getting further and further away from God. And this is just mainly for for people who are Christian watching this video. You're getting further and further away from God when you have sex with people. You know, when you have premarital sex. And what you'll find is that one day, you know, you could be fucking about doing all this, but one day you're going to meet someone who you love and who you really, really want to be with. But then after that, that person's just going to see you as an object, you know, because at the end of the day, you are who you attract. And then what's going to happen? You're going to get really hurt. You're going to get really hurt. It's happened to me. It's happened to many other people. I'm telling you, when you want to be with someone so badly, but you're in this lifestyle, you know, this modern day, oh yeah, let's just have sex, you know, it's sex isn't that important. It really just hurts your soul, and you get further and further away from God. Those are pretty much all I can think about for the pros and cons, but this video is mainly not about the pros and cons. This video is mainly about why I believe that premarital sex should be sacred, or sex should be kept until marriage. You know, and I'm not saying that I'm innocent. You know, you've heard about my story. If you've been watching up to this point, you've heard about my story. You heard about how I've had sex with people, you know, a few different people, and how I hurt someone. You know, I hurt someone who I deeply loved and someone who loved me, and we had a good relationship, but because I was still blinded by lust, I let that go. You know, and that's part of the reason why I'm a Christian now. But if you got anything out of this video, you know, and if you could take away anything out of this video, it should be that whatever you choose to do, whether you still have sex before marriage, or you have, you know, or you choose to be like me where you want to just keep sex for the right person, please at least do it with someone who you love. Because hookup culture will it will ruin you. I'm telling you, there's so many people who bought into this modern day lie that, oh, you could just have sex with anyone. Sex isn't that important. There's so many of those people now are either drug addicts, they're in failed marriages, or they're still doing it and feel soulless. You could see these people, they're soulless. They don't have any life to them. So, as I said, you are your own person, and you can do what you like, and you can do whatever you want to do in life, whatever pleases you. But please just think consciously about what you're doing before you do it, and this can go for any other area of your life. But something that I'd say is sex is it's a joyful experience. You know, it's a really intimate experience, and just think, you know. But anyways, I'm gonna leave you to it. If you like this video, please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment. Peace.